All right, if you're anything like me, you hate running out of food on a trip. It's like a big fear, and so I'm a big fan of snacks during an adventure, and one of my absolute favorite go-to snacks are wonderful pistachios. You may be familiar with pistachios and the brand Wonderful Pistachios, but if you're not, they are one of the highest protein nuts out there. 1 ounce serving of Wonderful Pistachios is 6 grams of protein. That's 10% of your daily value. It also includes 9 essential amino acids, and they come with a ton of different flavors, varieties. There's a spicy version, there's lightly salted, there's no salted, there's so many, and every time I go on an adventure, I'm not even lying, I take an entire bag with me. And what's cool too, I love having the Wonderful Pistachio in shell, because then that almost gives me something to do and focus on as I'm paddling or biking through the really monotonous parts of the adventure. Every great adventure is going to have plenty of boring moments, and it's nice to have something to do and also something that is giving you some fuel, like Wonderful Pistachios. So they're one of my favorite adventure snacks, favorite road trip snacks, and definitely leave me feeling better than a lot of other snacks you can turn to. So if you want to learn more about how to fuel your next adventure with Wonderful Pistachios, go to wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. I love a good deal as much as the next person, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be relatively easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called BS on them. Well, turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. It is super easy to switch your wireless carrier to Mint Mobile. They got a great website, easy to purchase, get your phone activated. If you're looking to work with Mint Mobile, go to mintmobile.com/ASP. And you'll see how to sign up for one of their 3-month plans that are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months on premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/ASP. That's mintmobile.com/ASP. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower at 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional tax, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Today's Adventure Sports podcast is sponsored by Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete. Why are so many dogs suffering with health issues? Well, Katherine Heigl, who's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation, says she is seeing more issues with dogs' joints, odors, and health than ever before. And after doing tons of research, she feels the one place that we can do the most good for any dog's health is their food. So she decided to create something that she could feel good about her dogs eating, and it's called Superfood Complete. It's made with over 30 of the healthiest ingredients on the planet, including several superfoods vital for dogs' health. I have an aging dog who has had some joint issues, and he is absolutely loving the Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete. And I feel a lot better knowing I'm doing a little bit more to help him with his aging joints and some of those issues that are now popping up. If you want to try it, go to badlandsranch.com/ASP and order right now to get 50% off your regular price order with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you want your dog to experience all the incredible things, go to BADLANDS ranch.com/ASP. Again, badlandsranch.com/ASP. Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason. Today's episode, which is a throwback to 2020, is with Jude Kneller. And yeah, I just remember this being one of the most interesting conversations, or one that really stands out from the past, because Jude just was so young, 19 years old, did this amazing trip and did it so economically. He had a bike from like Goodwill that was $75 and biked across the U.S. And, I'm not saying you need to do something like this at that age, but I've talked to so many people in life over the years, since I did something like this, who have gone on to achieve really incredible things, who had some sort of story like this early on. Maybe they, run a company now or are known for doing something really unique or have a real career in something. So many of them have some sort of really outlying experience like this where they just decided to ride a bike across the country at 19, 20, 21 years old, or through hiked a trail, or, left for a gap year and did something. And so if you know anybody around this age, or maybe you yourself are, I encourage you, do something that really stands out, that really allows you to see the world from a new perspective before diving into what might be your career or what might be something with, more traditional responsibilities. Or if you're going through some sort of transition in life, take some time and do something really unique like this. I can't tell you how many adventures we've talked about on the show that were a gap year between high school and college, or a gap year between college and career, a divorce, an economic downturn. So many of the things that we talk about as life-changing moments for people were from some sort of disruption in life. And oftentimes young, not always young. Sometimes it's in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We've talked to people doing adventures at every stage of life, just taking advantage of when those opportunities are open. So Jude's story is like that at the young age of 19, and I just really remember this being a really fun conversation. So I hope you enjoy. Jude, I hope you're doing well. If you've done anything else since then, let's have you back on the show. But all right, let's go ahead and dive in. All right, folks, welcome to today's episode. I'm pretty excited about this one. I like all the episodes, don't get me wrong, but this one feels like it's going to be special just because we got someone so young doing something so epic to me, biking across country. That's something I love. If you're a fan of the show, I talk about it all the time. But yeah, today's guest is Jude Kneller. Jude, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be on the show.
Yeah. So where are you coming from today? Where are you holed up for quarantine?
Well, I'm here in Springfield, Illinois, born and raised. I've actually lived in this house for 20 years in July. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, whole life in the cornfields. And actually, my first time really getting out into the mountains, which I love the mountains, but I would never really left the flatlands until I was 16 and had my first real adventure out west with my older brother. We took his Jeep out to Colorado, Utah, and South Dakota.
Oh man, I bet that blew your mind.
It did. I remember going into the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. It was just like my head just like glued to the window, just looking up like, oh my gosh, this is real. I'd be spending a lot more time out in the mountains after that.
That's awesome, man. That's actually where I live. I live right in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains outside of Denver. But it's a great
That's
place.
Awesome.
It is, but it's there's no place like home. I put it that way. And so
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, adventure can be anywhere, man. It really can.
Yeah, people around here, me and my friends joke that Springfield's a great place to travel from because it never changes.
There you go, man. You know what's good. You know what to expect at home.
Yeah, that's right.
Gosh, I don't even know where to start. I guess, folks heard a little bit about you. I record an official intro after the interview, so folks are going to hear kind of a general overview of your story there. But I'd love to just hear, like, what led you to want to bike across country? What inspired that, or what kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, what led to that idea? What was that like?
Yeah. Well, I started riding on two wheels when I was 3 years old. According to my parents' stories, I was begging to get the training wheels off. I had an older brother at the time. He was racing BMX. And my dad has always been into all types of biking, mountain biking, BMX when he was younger, and then road cycling as I was growing up. And I remember a friend of ours, a family friend, he rode across the country back in the late 80s. He rode basically the northern tier from Portland to New York City. And I remember hearing about his stories when I was 7 years old. and thinking how outlandish and crazy that sounded, but for some reason it really appealed to me. So from a young age, I always had a mind for adventure and a longing to do something pretty, big and cool. And when I was 18, I got my motorcycle license, and my brother and we both had Kawasaki KLR 650s. And 2 months after I turned 18, we took our bikes and we rode up to Canada, and we circled all 5 Great Lakes and had a pretty grand adventure. And then later that summer, we took our motorcycles out west. We did a lot of off-roading out in the Rocky Mountains, San Juan Mountains, Moab, Utah. And after that experience, I was really transfixed on the idea of doing a longer tour on a bicycle. At the time, I was committed to the Navy, and after I graduated high school, the plan was to spend the next 6 years in the U.S. Navy. The summer leading up to that, I actually injured myself by overtraining. I tend to overdo it sometimes to get pat about something. So actually, during boot camp, I got medically discharged from the Navy. And while I was in holding up there in Great Lakes at the boot camp, I decided that since all my plans had been derailed for what I thought was going to be my foreseeable future, I decided that I was going to bike across the country as soon as my injuries were healed up, which were stress fractures and shin splints in my lower legs. At that point, I had never done longer than 2 days on a bicycle.
Wow. And
so that was November of 2018. So I came home in November of 2018, and I got a job as a jewelry salesman locally here.
All
and
right.
At that point, I was about to turn 19, and I was making pretty decent money as a jewelry salesman. Didn't know much about it, but I was learning. And taking a job in sales can never go wrong, because you're either going to love it or you're going to learn that you don't want to be in sales.
Right,
so I worked that, and I was just stashing away some money, and I knew that I was going to do this trip. So in the middle of the winter, I started planning it out, and it was pretty funny because in November, I just got real excited one day. I looked up adventure cycling because I didn't have any idea of routes. So I looked up adventure cycling, found the southern tier, which was the most appealing to me because of the states that I went through. I'd never been to the West Coast before. So I ordered the maps, and after that, I said, well, I have the maps. There's no going back.
Well, you bought the maps. You got to do it now.
Yeah. So they came in the mail, and I showed my family, and they're like, oh, so you weren't joking about this? I'm like, heck no, I'm not joking. I'm going to do it. So then I kind of nailed down a rough date. I said sometime between April and May I'll leave, and this was again around November or December of 2018. So then slowly but surely, I was just kind of doing a little bit of research on gear and what kind of bike I wanted to ride. And at the time, which I still have this bike, it's a Trek 1200 series racing bike. And I bought it when I was 15 years old for a triathlon.
Do you know what year it is?
From what I've heard from mechanics, they said it's probably mid-90s.
That's awesome, man. I'm looking at the bike right now. It's this old Trek, man, and I think,
yeah.
I mean, that's just awesome that you took off on that thing, you know?
Oh yeah, it was actually so leading up to it, I was looking at like Surly's and stuff, and I was like, I don't really want to spend $1,500 to $2,000, and I'm just going to do it on what I have, because what's a better story than that? So I actually had some experience in welding, and I welded a bracket that mounted onto it so I could attach my frame, because it didn't have a bracket or the holes in the frame to mount the back rack.
Oh, I see. Holy cow. I can't tell that from the pictures. Wow.
Yeah. It's an aluminum racing bike. So I didn't really consider the wheels and the build of them. So that actually ended up being a problem not too far into my trip. To get back to before I started. So as I was working in the jewelry store, just between customers, I'd sit at the front counter on Amazon and just load up my cart with all the things I needed, like my panniers, my back rack, my camping gear, my shoes, my helmet, or, all that stuff. And I was just reading some forums, what was the best items to bring with me. And I was pretty much doing it ultralight. I wouldn't say ultralight, but lighter than most people. I didn't have front racks or front bags.
Yeah.
So and leading up to it, I actually only rode my bike 5 or 6 times that winter.
just get a feel for, I can't ride it, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, my longest ride before that was 104 miles. My brother and I, my older brother Blaine, he and I rode from here to Champaign, Illinois, which the route we took was 104 miles, and then we woke up the next day and rode back. We stayed with my grandparents, and so I just had to do that basically 30 times in a row, but add in thousands of feet of elevation gain. It's no big deal.
Right. Well, man, what's just so crazy about this is like, what did your parents say? You tell them the idea, you're obviously getting stuff shipped to your house, and I mean, what was their, I don't know, reaction to the idea, and also going into it, how did they feel about it?
My dad could not be more excited. He was with us when we went out west on our motorcycles, and we roughed it on that trip. We camped every night. So he's always been an advocate for my brother and I's adventures. My mom, on the other hand, she was quite nervous, to say the least. Lots of prayers from her. They trusted my judgment and my preparation. They did question, I shouldn't say they, she questioned whether or not I was physically prepared enough. And, I'm just like, Mom, it's just a bicycle. I mean, it'll be fine. It's not like I'm running across the country or something.
Right.
But, they were very supportive of me, and I'm super thankful for their support.
And so you get all your stuff together, you got your bike, you did your 5 or 6 rides, and you get to San Diego. Where did you just follow the southern tier exactly, start where they suggest, and just go from there? Like, what was it like to start? I mean, that had to feel crazy.
It was wild. Actually, I'm fortunate to know someone in San Diego. So she picked me up from the airport. It was just a family friend. And she was like, you should stay and we can go surfing and stuff. And I'm like, no, I want to get started today. So I flew in on a Saturday morning. I got to San Diego around noon, and I shipped my bike to a local bike shop, and it was actually like half mile from the trailhead. So I had to go get my bike assembled, which took a lot longer than I had anticipated. But when I got on the route finally, it was about 4 p.m. and I had never followed an ACA map before. 2 miles in, and I took my first turn.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So it was a learning curve. I've used ACA once for the Tour Divide, and it was tough. I didn't have a cyclocomputer or anything, but
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, they're good. They're good maps though.
Oh, I love them. It's it didn't take long to get acquainted with the maps, but I followed the maps to a T pretty much. Other than Phoenix, I rerouted. I used Google Maps to get myself to a bike shop, and then actually in Mississippi, I took a wrong turn and I went 5 miles in the opposite direction and got a flat tire, and had to reroute myself back to the road I was supposed to be on. And that was actually a day that I completed 150 miles. So at that point I had 75 miles to do at 4 p.m. I still had 75 miles left. It was a challenging afternoon.
Jeez, man.
Yeah.
You mentioned early on, I know I've done that route actually. In
nice.
The same amount of time too, 33 days. And so,
no way.
Yeah, man, same exact route. And I did it 2016, so not terribly long ago, but the elevation right at the beginning, you go right up into the mountains.
Oh my
pretty
gosh.
much right from the coast. I'm sure it caught you off guard a little
yeah.
bit.
Oh, it really, yeah. The elevation was like a smack in the face by a brick. I knew that I had nothing around here to prepare myself mentally for that. And so, basically you go from sea level to around 4,000 feet within the first 50 miles. and I just kept cranking, and I knew there's no choice but going up, so I just had to have some positive self-talk and a few caffeinated beverages, and I got myself through, that first climb, and then it was downhill, that straight shot on the interstate, like straight down to the valley, which was insane, going like 50 miles an hour, not whizzing past semis, but alongside semis, and the shoulder was just strewn with debris. It was pretty freaky.
That's wild, man. I mean, so early on, I don't know, did anything happen, or what was it like camping? Were you familiar with that kind of stuff? Did that stuff scare you, or what were some of those fears going in?
Okay, the camping was actually really unique because the first night I got kicked out of a campsite. It's a funny story. So I was in San Diego, and like I said, I got a late start, and I ended up only getting 30 miles in that afternoon. So I hadn't reserved any campsites, and I didn't actually find out about warm showers until day 5 of the trip.
Oh wow!
So that was unfortunate. But so I left San Diego, and I made it to Lakeside, California, and there was a campground by Lake Jennings. It was Lake Jennings campground. I didn't call until 6 p.m. The office was closed, and it was so by the time I got there, it was about 9 p.m. It was all dark, and there was a gate around the whole lake area, but there was a way I got in through a smaller gate, and I was just riding up the road to the campground, and I actually took a little drainage ditch up to where the sites were, and it went right to an open campsite. So I was like, well, I'll just pitch my tent here. If anybody bothers me, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I got all my tent up, ate my dinner, got in, zipped it, and then a park ranger came up and shined his light in my tent, and he said, so I sat up and I was like, good evening. He's like, do you mind telling me your name to confirm this is your site? And it's just a total Barney Fife character, but I wasn't supposed to be there. And I told him my name. He's like, well, that's funny because that doesn't match the name on the reservation. And I was like, oh crap. Man. I was like, dude, you have no idea what my day has been. It was pretty funny because I went next door and I was like, well, I know you don't want me to stay here, but you can't stop me from asking someone else if I can stay on their campsite. And I was just determined to sleep somewhere. I know I probably sounded like a jerk to him, but I was like, I want to sleep. And it turns out the site that I was at, the people had packed up 30 minutes beforehand and left. So it was an empty campsite. But story short, he called back up. Another guy in a golf cart pulls up, and they're like, you got to leave. You can go stay with the other homeless people down at the lake. And I'm like, I'm not homeless. It was really funny. They're thinking, I'm like, you see all this gear? This is worth more than your, month's salary here. I'm not like a homeless guy hauling around trash.
Right. No, I've definitely been accused a few times. It's funny.
Yeah. So I was bummed out and I was disappointed in my preparation that night, but I was fortunate enough to call my friend who was only 30 miles away. She came pick me up. I stayed at her apartment that night, and then she drove me back the next morning, which was Easter Sunday, right back where I left off.
Oh, perfect. There you go, man. That's yeah. We all need a little help when we get started off, and you make it through that first night. Then what? How long do you think did it take you to kind of get in a rhythm or feel like you were kind of in the lifestyle and making it work?
In all honesty, I didn't get super comfortable with the mileage I was aiming for until I was east of Texas, really, because
so pretty much almost done.
Yeah, 1,000 miles left, and I was like, okay, I'm getting in a groove. But a lot of that had to do with I had 5 days of extreme headwind from the point I crossed the Texas state line until I was pretty much in central Texas. But also one of my biggest challenges was leaving Phoenix, because the night that I got to Phoenix, my legs were cooked, and then the next morning, you got that big climb up through those mountain passes, going up the Tonto Basin, and I actually did a lot of those 8% grades when it was dark on those interstates, and that was my only time I saw a rattlesnake was going up those big climbs. But that was a huge challenge. East Texas was pretty enjoyable once I got to the greener side of the country. But it was getting pretty lonely out there in West Texas and the high desert with nothing but short shrubs and just land for miles and miles and nothing but semis here and there.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible.
A lot of y'all know I work for Athletic Brewing Company through my day job, and we use Shopify for our e-commerce platform. And Shopify is so helpful because even when we were a tiny little startup, just a couple employees, we were using Shopify. And now as we've grown to one of the biggest breweries in the country, well, we're still using Shopify. They make it so easy to grow. And I actually am recommending it to anybody starting a business, big or small. Definitely go with Shopify. I have a ton of firsthand experience with this global commerce platform, and it helps truly at every stage of the business. I've seen it firsthand. Whether you're auctioning off one-of-a-kind things like autographed apparel or sports memorabilia, baseball cards, or selling skis, like it really doesn't matter. They can help you at any stage of business and sell anywhere. I host a podcast through my day job, and we host the podcast and put it all on there on our blog on the website. It's great. We can put different surveys online, and there's all sorts of apps that go into it. It's really user-friendly and very robust. If you want to sign up for their $1 per month trial period, go to shopify.com/ASP, all lowercase. Shopify.com/ASP now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Again, that's shopify.com/ASP for Adventure Sports Podcast. Hey folks, this episode is brought to you by, well, the state of Colorado. If you didn't know, this show was born and raised in Colorado. So many of our guests and stories take place there. So many of my adventures take place there. And we hope these episodes inspire you to seek an exciting trip of your own this summer in the beautiful state of Colorado. I was just there in Aspen, went hiking. It was absolutely breathtaking. And the mountains get a lot of attention, but there's culinary adventures, outdoor adventures, entertainment and scenic outdoor venues from music festivals and film festivals and all sorts of festivals. The state has it all. Experience the thrill of mountain biking along riverside trails or hop aboard a train for a railroad adventure. It has charming mountain and historic towns and cities, historic hotels, dude ranches, and like I said before, amazing cuisine, Michelin star level dining. And on those chilly summer nights, relax in one of the hot springs. Let Colorado awaken your spirit of adventure and explore all the possibilities that the state has to offer at visitcolorado.com and uncover the magic and start planning your getaway today. Visitcolorado.com. So, one of the stereotypes when you get older, you start really getting into birds, and it is very true for me. My wife and I are like, is that a cardinal? Is that a mockingbird? A blue jay, whatever it is, I'm really getting into birds. And what I'm very excited about is the new Feather Snap, which is a Wi-Fi enabled smart bird feeder that blends the best of technology and nature. It's this unique dual bird feeder that helps attract more species with built-in solar panels and keeps your camera battery going strong to charge the camera that's on there, and then it sends it to your phone and also identifies the birds that are going to your feeder. Me and the kids are absolutely loving it, and we've been really surprised by what's come to our bird feeder. Just for transparency, I got my mom a trail camera last year so she could see all the animals in her backyard, and the first night we saw a bear. A bear. We didn't even know there were bears. I mean, we knew, but we didn't know they were that close. And this takes it to a whole nother level because it's for people who love birds and want to understand what's in their backyard. And I think it's an awesome gift idea. It's like one of those things a lot of people wouldn't get for themselves, but it's such a cool thing to give people that they can really get excited about. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And it's just, I'm always a huge fan of bringing more of nature in and getting people more excited about the things around them. And as someone who can't be in the mountains all the time or out on an adventure, this is almost like bringing a little adventure home with you. If you want to learn more about the Feather Snap camera, go to feathersnapcam.com. That's Feathersnap, S-N-A-P, cam, C-A-M.com, where you can learn more about their cameras and open up your own window to the wild. Hey folks, this episode is brought to you by, well, the state of Colorado. If you didn't know, this show was born and raised in Colorado. So many of our guests and stories take place there. So many of my adventures take place there.
And we hope these episodes inspire you to seek an exciting trip of your own this summer in the beautiful state of Colorado. I was just there in Aspen, went hiking. It was absolutely breathtaking. And the mountains get a lot of attention, but there's culinary adventures, outdoor adventures, entertainment and scenic outdoor venues from music festivals and film festivals and all sorts of festivals. The state has it all. Experience the thrill of mountain biking along riverside trails or hop aboard a train for a railroad adventure. It has charming mountain and historic towns and cities, historic hotels, dude ranches, and like I said before, amazing cuisine, Michelin star level dining. And on those chilly summer nights, relax in one of the hot springs. Let Colorado awaken your spirit of adventure and explore all the possibilities that the state has to offer at visitcolorado.com and uncover the magic and start planning your getaway today. Visitcolorado.com.
That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
Man, unbelievable. I'm just looking at the route right now and thinking back. You know, West Texas was really empty, really, really empty. And yeah, right about hill country in Texas, it was started getting nice. And, you know, what were you, how was your interaction with people? Did you ever feel endangered, or were people pretty kind to you, pretty nice? And did you meet anyone really interesting? How was it with the folks out there?
Really, the only issues I had with motorists were when I got to East Texas through Alabama, and it was the young rednecks in their 4x4 diesels that would think it was just hilarious to creep up behind me and then jam it to the floor and blow black smoke in my face.
Oh, yeah.
And
rolling coal is what that's called.
Yeah. Oh, roll for sure. I just wish I had one afternoon to see if they could keep up with me on the bike, you know.
I know it pisses you off when they do that. It's like, come on, we could have a beer together. You know, we could. Oh, not you. You're too young.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of beer, there in Florida, I stopped at Blackwater State Park, and I just wanted to do a little circle around the river and see what that was like. And as I was leaving, somebody they were coming up behind me and they're like, "Hey, buddy, hey!" And they said something to me, and then they stopped at the stop sign. I'm like, "Oh no, what do they want?" So I ride up to him, and he's holding out a beer, a Natty Light. He's like, "Hey, brother, you look like you've had a hard day. You could probably go for a beer right now." And he's like, "Have a beer." And I was like, "Oh man, thanks a bunch. I appreciate it." And I got a laugh out of that, and you know,
sounds like Florida,
Southern hospitality. Yeah. But I met a lot of wonderful people at gas stations. Really, I love the gas station interactions because, you know, you pull up and you got your high visibility gear on and all your stuff strapped to your bike, and people can't help but ask questions. And I like telling about myself and what I'm doing, but really I like asking them questions about them and, you know, how long they've lived there and what their life has been like and stuff. Because, you know, at some point you get tired of talking about yourself. It's the same spiel every day to people. So yeah, I met some great people, and I stayed with 3 warm shower hosts, and they were all wonderful.
Man, I know exactly what you're talking about. You pull up and people say, you know, it's the big questions is, where are you going? Where did you come from? And like, what else? Another one, like, yeah, how far are you going today or something? Or why? I get a lot of, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Why in the world would you do that?
Yeah. And it was, I mean, my why is I always want to try to push myself farther. And actually I started competitive swimming year-round swimming when I was 13 at my local YMCA swim team. And I joined the team at 13 and barely qualified for state that year. And then my goal was to go to nationals. And my junior and senior year of high school, I went to nationals and actually ended up placing in a relay top 6 in the nation for YMCA. So
wow.
That background really gave me a drive to push my body and push my mind farther than I thought capable. And I don't think that if I didn't have that background, I don't think this ride would have been possible. So just have to give a big shout out to my teammates and my coach for, you know, all the hard days in the pool, the hours and hours of training, and the camaraderie that came with that. Because when I was by myself on 2 wheels, it was, didn't have that camaraderie with other people. It was just all in my own head.
Wow, man. Going through this and having to do it every single day, was there ever a point that it just started getting too hard or felt too difficult, or did it get easier as you went on?
It definitely, I got stronger as it went on, and my family definitely noticed that. They're like, dude, your quads are getting huge. And I'm like, well, thanks to the mountains. The most painful point I can remember is that day that I left Phoenix, and then I camped at Jake's Corner. I don't know if you remember that place. It was basically a gas station and a bar up in the desert. And that night, that was the most pain I've ever felt in my legs. And the next morning, getting back on the bike was extremely challenging, just to get down the road 5 or 10 miles. But there was only one day where I didn't bike at all, and that was in Silver City, New Mexico. I ended up breaking spokes on my back wheel because the wheels weren't heavy enough duty. So I had to wait it out. And the crazy thing was, they were doing the Tour de Gila out in New Mexico at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So the bike shops were like slammed with all the professional racers out there. So I went to a small bike shop, and the guy actually let me true my own rim, and he was teaching me the techniques to do that and stuff. So that was really cool. But after that, I think that day was pretty crucial, because when you leave Silver City, you have the tallest elevation of the whole trip, which is Emery Pass. And that one day of recovery really was crucial for that climb, because that's a pretty steep climb, but it really wasn't as bad as I anticipated.
Yeah, by that point, man, you were, a good, almost pretty much third into the trip, and had some miles behind you, had a little rest. And, I was going to ask if anything went wrong with the bike, because it is an older bike, but, and you had it for a few years, and obviously you bought it used. But, do you mind sharing just like how much did you pay for that, or kind of like it doesn't seem like you spent a ton of money on this trip.
No. So the bike I paid $75 for.
Yeah, I love it.
I paid $75 for it. And then I had a neighbor who gave me an old Dutch bike that he toured Europe on, that had a stem that I took from it, because I had a racing stem on my bike. So I took the stem off of this old Dutch bike. It's called a Gazelle, and I put it on my bike. It looks ridiculous. It's an adjustable stem, very bulky. That was able to raise my bars up to where I needed them to be. And I double wrapped my bar tape to give a little extra cushion. But my brake hoods were, I don't know how old they are, but they're extremely pointy. So then I ended up resting my hands on them, and the points were going straight into the palm of my hand. I lost feeling in my hand for about 3 weeks after I got home from my trip. So that was pretty funny.
Jeez.
But back to the bike, disassembled the wheels, repacked the wheel bearings, disassembled my bottom bracket, repacked my bottom bracket before I left, bought a new chain, put Schwalbe Marathon Plus tires on it. And that's basically all I did. I got a new seat also. But yeah, so that's all I did in preparation on the bicycle. So going up to Silver City, I broke my first spoke. I got new spokes, or I got a new spoke, trued the rim. And then in Alpine, Texas, going into Alpine, Texas, I broke another spoke, and I went to a small bike shop there, and they didn't have any wheels. So I got like 6 extra spokes. And then 2 days after leaving Alpine, I broke 2 more spokes, and I had to stop. It was a whole process. It was my rear wheel, so I had to stop, take my wheel off, take my tire to rim tape, and do the whole truing process on the side of the road, which was tricky, and it was very frustrating, because I just wanted to get some miles under my belt. But in Austin, Texas, I ended up going to Mellow Johnny's bike shop. And it's Lance Armstrong's bike shop. It's a coffee shop, taco joint, and bike shop all in one, and it's one of the coolest places I've ever been. And they hooked me up with a new rear wheel, a nice Mavic, and installed it for me for like $60, and it's been great ever since.
Oh man, that's actually the wheels I ride, and yeah, man, I was gonna ask. This isn't necessarily a touring bike; it's old. How did you make it happen? Because I feel like so many people feel like they have to have all the just perfect equipment, everything right dialed in. You know, people get really particular about their gear, and they spend tons and tons of money on it. But it's like, I love when folks like you just go out there and make it happen. You know what I mean? That's what adventure is really all about.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's, it's like I mean, I see it every day. If you go on the bike trail, whatever, you see these guys, and they got all their color coordinated spandex on and everything, and they're averaging a whopping 12 miles an hour. It's like,
Right.
it doesn't matter how fancy your gear is or how new it is, how improved, it's not going to put the muscles on your legs. It's not going to put the stamina in your cardio. And that's really what I had to keep telling myself, because it's like, yeah, I could have a little better gear. I could have a little more efficiency. But it was funny because when I was coming into Las Cruces, New Mexico, it was my longest day yet. And I had done 120 miles, and I crossed the paths of two guys that had just started that day. They were picking up in El Paso. They started in El Paso, Texas, and they were going up to Canada. And this guy had a brand new carbon fiber touring bike, all Ortley, brand new panniers. Everything was shiny, no dirt on it. And I was like, how far have you guys gone today? They're like, mile 30 right now. And it was 8 p.m. I'm like, I'm kind of like, interesting. And they're like, yeah, we're planning to do this many miles a day or whatever. But what about you? I'm like, I told them my mileage and everything. And they're like very shocked. And they were a little older than me, but not too old. And it was just a good reminder that even though these guys have amazing gear that I would love to ride on and use, and they're all hooked up, I'm doing it with what I have and the stamina that I've built for myself and the drive. It's, you can't trade that for anything. But it just goes to show it's not the gear that makes the ride.
Definitely not, man. And I can't tell you how many times that keeps people from doing things. And if you would have waited on being able to afford a $2,000 touring bike and all the right stuff, you might have not ever gone, because that day might have not ever came. But guess what? You went out there and you crushed it, and you actually did it. You know what I'm saying? There's a huge, if it's the difference between doing it or not, I would say go with what you have right now. If you can go, if you have to wait, but you might not have the opportunity then when you have some money to get the gear, then, as long as you're not putting yourself in crazy danger. And it worked though, it made it.
Yeah,
and there was some setbacks, but guess what? You solved it. You went to a bike shop. This guy cut you a deal, figured it out. And so, and it obviously led to a lot of cool stories too,
Yeah, and it did. And, nothing against people who buy nice gear. I mean, I would love to spend, thousands of dollars on the nice gear, but just back to your point of, I could have bought the nice bike and stuff, but I want money in my bank account too. But
right.
One of the other funny things about my bike is, since it's aluminum and lightweight, I actually wasn't able to pedal standing up at all. Because there's so much flex in the frame, it just wobbled if I pedaled it at all standing up, even at like in a parking lot. So I stayed seated that entire ride while pedaling, and it definitely would have been nice to have a sturdy steel frame bike where I could have stood up and cranked every once in a while. But I think it was just one of those things where it just made me stronger and helped me appreciate. Yeah.
There you go. Helped you appreciate it. And so you were also traveling light. Can you walk us through like some of the gear you took and what was important to have and what wasn't?
The most important gear to me was the tent that I had, even though I never got rained on. But just to have the tent, because I slept on the side of the road a few times in like not cornfield. I don't know what kind of fields they were, just dirt fields. And without the tent, I just don't want to be sleeping where a poisonous snake or some, like a black widow spider could come crawl on my bag. So the tent, sleeping bag, and sleeping mat were important. And those are all fairly lightweight.
Dude, I was looking at your sleeping pad. You have a Climate Static V. That's the exact same sleeping pad I used on all my bike tours. Same color
awesome.
and everything.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it actually just popped this summer, so I'm gonna have to get it
Oh,
one.
shoot. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, you can patch them with a bike repair kit. So just so you know.
Yeah, I can't find the hole.
That's
Yeah,
funny, man. I
it's
had
time.
the same stove as you too. It was like an old Coleman stove.
Oh yeah, that's funny because I was listening to one of your previous casts like a couple weeks ago, and I heard you say I just bought a Walmart stove for like $15. I'm like, I wonder if that's the same one I have. Pretty
Dang,
awesome.
same exact one, man. That's
Yeah,
too cool.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't. I mean, it's not as quick as a jet boil. That was one of the things that jet boils are nice. Takes like 30 seconds to boil water, but I really didn't do a lot of mountain meals. So that was whatever, but having charging packs for my phone was big time, especially out west when there was some like 100-mile 90-mile stretches where there's like no stops or anything. So sleeping on the side of the road, being able to have a couple days worth of charges for your phone was big because I'm out there by myself. If anything were to happen, I want to be able to reach someone. So I would charge those up at campsites or warm shower hosts, and I'd have about 4 days worth of charge with just 2 small battery packs.
Oh man, that's great. Yeah, you had a basic but very efficient setup. I love that you only used the rear panniers and kind of just, that's how I rode too, man. It's just, gosh, it's like looking at myself 10 years ago. It's crazy. Sorry if I'm just like reminiscing, but
oh no, I love it. That's my favorite part about talking to people
it's
about
like,
stuff.
wow, that's so nuts. So what were what was maybe one of your favorite memories from the experience? Was it a particular set of miles or a particular, sunset or something, some sort of someone you met? Was there anything that you just love to share when people ask, how did it go?
Oh man, there's so many. I might just list off a few.
Yeah, go for it.
Sunrise in Mississippi was extraordinary over the farmland. That was so beautiful. The Gila National Forest in New Mexico, the beauty of the granite rocks and the hills and the tall spruce trees, I think they are out there, was extraordinary. And the two I rode, this is a pretty unique story. At the time, so my girlfriend now, her dad was in the Naval Reserves. He recently retired. But at the time last year, he was in Pensacola he was a flight trainer for helicopter pilots in the Navy. And he had talked to my family when I was actually in Arizona. And he said, well, is he going to be passing through the Pensacola? Because I'm going to be there in mid-May. And so we connected, and he told me the dates that he was going to be there. And I told him that was right around the time that I anticipated to be there. And then that's right when I ran into bike trouble in New Mexico, set me back a little bit. And then I got a little setback in Texas. And so I ended up booking it. I did 150 miles, 2 days in a row through Louisiana, Mississippi, and to Dauphin Island. And then the next day I took the ferry and met him, and I stayed with him that night. He took me out to dinner. He bought me breakfast the next morning. We met some of his friends. And at the time I was actually talking to his daughter, who's now my girlfriend. And so it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool that, and it was really awesome to stay with someone that lives in Springfield, Illinois, because he was flying down there. And now here I am dating his daughter.
That's pretty cool, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So at least I don't know how he feels about that. Well, this guy, just homeless dude riding his bike across country, is now dating my daughter. I'm just kidding.
Oh no, he was all for it. He was all
cool.
for it.
So you get to the end, and I think your parents met you there. And
yeah.
I mean, what was that feeling like completing that? And I don't know, what was going through your head as you got closer? Because you get this surge of energy, of course, as you get really close, and it's like, holy cow, I made it.
Yeah, it was a challenge all the way up to the last few miles. I had crazy headwind getting to the Atlantic coast, just the coastal breeze. But leading up to the last day, I definitely felt some bittersweet emotions. And the last day itself was excitement to see my parents, excitement to be done with the ride. but I really wanted to keep riding. If it weren't for them coming to
Wow.
meet me and it weren't for my job to come back home to, I probably would have kept going up the coast into New England, but that's for another day.
So that leads me to my next question. Do you foresee doing more tours in the future? Did you enjoy bike touring enough to continue doing it?
Oh yeah, I mean it's by far probably the most exciting adventure I've been on. I want to do the Northern Tier now.
Yeah.
I want to do the North Tier. I'm not sure when, but in the near future. I actually just did the Natchez Trace with my older brother as a last hurrah before he becomes a father, and in 2 weeks from now. So that's exciting.
Oh wow, you're gonna be Uncle Jude.
Yep.
Filling the crazy
I'm excited.
ideas in his head. Oh
yeah.
boy.
One thing I just want to throw in about my trip is my father actually rode his motorcycle like 900 miles and met me in Louisiana and camped with me one night during my trip. And it was so special to be able to see him and just spend that night camping with him. And then the next day he just explored Louisiana while I did my miles. And then we stayed one night in a hotel, then he left. And the best part and the most painful part of my trip, because after not, seeing my loved ones for 20 some days and then having to say goodbye again, I just started bawling my eyes out.
Man, gosh, that's exactly, what it feels like. It's like you see them, it's exciting. You've seen all these things. The 3 weeks, 4 weeks to them might not feel like that much, but to you, it's felt like 6 months. You've seen so much in that small amount of time. That's
Every
really cool.
day is just packed full of new things.
So what would you say the biggest lesson you learned from doing this on your own at such a young age? I mean, is there anything you really kind of carry with you now? Because this was a year ago, correct?
Yes, it was. Yeah, a year ago now. I was somewhere down south. But the biggest takeaway for me is that comfort robs us all from the greatest rewards in life. And those of us who are strong enough and driven enough to make ourselves uncomfortable and endure that, we come out learning more, becoming stronger, and if we're smart enough and have enough grace, we can encourage others to do the same. That, and don't eat too much canned chili while you're biking.
I bet that made for a rough day or two following that.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
My body told me real quick, stop eating canned chili.
Stop eating canned chili. Yeah. It's really hard not to just eat everything in sight on those rides, because you get so hungry burning all the calories, and you get to a town and want to eat everything they have.
Yeah, and it really was challenging once I got to Texas, and they had Laredo tacos in most of the gas stations.
Oh,
go there
man.
and get like 4 chimichangas and their fresh tacos and just chow down all day on that stuff. I was sweating out Mexican food, not even kidding.
That's awesome, man. So if you just to wrap up, I'd love to hear, is there anything in the works for you moving forward? Anything next? You got your eyes set on, I know you said the Northern Tier, but anything immediately for you, as well as, where can people find out more about you and learn more about your story?
As of now, my biggest goal right now is actually writing about the whole trip, handwritten documentation of the trip. So that's a goal. But as far as trips go, I reserved a spot for the Trans North Georgia mountain bike race, but I'm not sure if that's August 15th, and I'm not sure if that's going to go down with all this stuff happening. So we'll just see. But I'm actually also, something that's up in the air is I might be going to Nepal for a missions trip in July. That'd be pretty cool. Oh yeah, I ran over a dog in Louisiana.
What? How did you do that?
Yeah, for all the dog lovers out there, I just want to say that I do not advocate animal cruelty, and it was not my fault. I was cruising by just rural Louisiana houses, and 2 dogs ran out. They're both little, mutt-sized dogs, and one of them came up real close up to my pedals, and I was going about 16 miles per hour, and it was yapping at my feet, so I kicked off one of my feet from the clip pedal and I went to like kind of push it away with my foot, and it just kept running up closer to my front tire, and my foot sticking out made me veer to the left a little bit, and it pretty much stuck its neck right under my tire and ended up running over its neck with my front and back tire, and then it ran off squealing. It was fine, but I was almost wrecked, so I was glad to come away from that without dropping the bike. So that was pretty interesting. Also, my iPhone totally crashed, and I was without communication or any access in Texas Hill Country for 24 hours, and that was pretty crazy because it was like the hilliest part of that. And a huge storm came in that night. And it was actually pretty miraculous. I know that God was watching over me at that point, because I had a choice to stay at a gas station, which was closed in the middle of nowhere under a tree, or go 5 miles out of the way to a place that was listed on the map as an RV park. And I decided to go out of the way. It was already dark. So I'm going down a gravel road at like 9:30 at night, and end up in these people's front yard. And they were really nice people, and they had cabins on their property. They let me stay in one of their cabins and gave me food, let me use their computer. And that night it stormed. It was the worst storm I experienced that whole trip. So I could have been under a tree that night getting struck by lightning. But by the grace of God, I was with some wonderful people staying in their cabin.
Dude, things work out when you put yourself out there. You don't know how you're going to get through these things, but people just come through for you, you know, and there's good people out there. That's something that bike touring really taught me, is that most people are really wonderful, you know? Yeah, they are. And it was reassuring, because you look around the world and think what's going on. But there are a handful. I had a lady run me off the road purposely in town. Jeez.
She's just stopped on the side of the road and just stared at me as I went by, and we exchanged some words. But other than that, everybody was pretty great.
Man, that's awesome. And I can't wait to hear more and hear more about what other adventures you plan on doing. And so how can folks follow you and I don't know, to hear more about your story or reach out to you?
Oh yeah. JHK2000 on Instagram. That's just all lowercase, and then the year I was born. And I hope to be making more updates about my upcoming adventures and stuff on there.
I really appreciate you joining us, man. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. It was fun.
Cool. All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Okay. See ya.
All right. See ya.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to the show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to growing the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.